It was just another bright Saturday morning in our quiet neighborhood in California. The sun had risen with a golden hue, flooding the kitchen with soft light. The scent of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the house as I stood at the kitchen island in my light summer dress, slicing fruit for breakfast. I was humming quietly to myself, completely in my weekend routine. My husband, David, had left early to help his brother with a car issue. I figured the house was still asleep, including my stepson, Jake, who was home from college for the summer. Jake had always been respectful and kind, and over the years, we had built a good relationship. I had been a part of his life since he was 12, and now at 20, he was growing into a confident, charming young man. I was cutting watermelon and cantaloupe when I suddenly sensed someone behind me. I turned around, startled, to see Jake standing in the doorway of the kitchen. His hair was messy from sleep, and he was wearing a plain white t-shirt and loose sweatpants. "Morning," I said, smiling at him as I brushed a strand of hair from my face. "Morning," he replied with a grin. "Smells amazing in here. Coffee's fresh. Want some?" He nodded and poured himself a cup. "That's a lot of melons," he said, glancing at the fruit on the counter. I laughed. "Your dad loves fruit with brunch. And you tend to eat half the fridge when you're home." He chuckled, then said with a sly smile, "Hard not to notice your melons, too." I paused, mid-slice. The kitchen went quiet. "Excuse me?" I asked, half laughing, half shocked. Jake turned red instantly. "I mean the fruit. I meant the fruit. That came out so wrong. I'm sorry." I raised an eyebrow, trying not to laugh. "Jake, that was a little inappropriate. I swear I didn't mean it like that. Just a dumb joke." "Let's just pretend that didn't happen," I said with a smile, though part of me still felt the tension lingering. Later that day, the moment replayed in my head. I didn't think he had meant anything serious, but I was suddenly aware that Jake wasn't a kid anymore. He was a young adult now, and something about the way he looked at me lately had changed, subtly but noticeably. That evening, David returned home full of energy, talking about how the car repair took longer than expected. Jake was quiet at dinner. I noticed he barely looked in my direction. After dinner, I stayed in the kitchen cleaning up while David headed upstairs. Jake returned a few minutes later to help. "You've been quiet tonight," I said, handing him a dish. I still feel bad about what I said earlier. "Jake, it's okay. I know you didn't mean anything by it." He looked down at the dish in his hands. "I respect you, you know. You've been more of a mom to me than anyone else." "That means a lot," I said softly. "Really?" He glanced up at me. "I just don't want things to be weird." "They're not weird. It's just a reminder that we're both growing in different ways." He nodded, and there was a silence between us that felt loaded with unspoken things. Then he said, "Thanks for being cool about it." "Of course," I replied, and we continued cleaning in silence. Over the next few weeks, Jake seemed to be around more. He joined me in the kitchen while I cooked, helped water the plants in the backyard, and stayed up talking with me when David was out late working. It wasn't anything inappropriate, but I noticed the attention, the extra effort. One afternoon, I was in the backyard trimming the garden when Jake came out with 2 glasses of lemonade. He handed me one and sat down nearby. "Dad's leaving for that work trip tomorrow, right?" "Yeah, Chicago. Just a few days. I'll be around if you need anything." "Thanks, Jake. That's sweet of you." He looked at me thoughtfully. "I just really like being around you." His words caught me off guard. I didn't know how to respond, so I just smiled and sipped my lemonade. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was afraid of anything, but because I realized we were entering a strange, sensitive dynamic. One that required clarity. The next morning, with David gone, I decided to talk to Jake. He was in the kitchen again, eating cereal. I sat down across from him. "Jake, we need to talk." He looked nervous.
Oh.
Did I do something again? "No, nothing bad. I just think we need to have a conversation about boundaries." He nodded slowly. "Because of the stuff I've been saying?"
Not just that.
"I think you're going through something, you're growing, you're figuring out emotions, and sometimes that leads to confusing feelings. And I care about you deeply, but I'm also your dad's wife." He exhaled.
Yeah.
"I get that. I didn't mean to blur any lines. I guess I was just confused. That's okay, I said. What matters is how we handle it. He looked me in the eyes. I would never do anything to hurt you. Or Dad. I know, I said. And I appreciate you being mature about this. From that day forward, Jake kept a respectful distance. He still helped around the house, still chatted with me, but the energy shifted back to something simpler, safer. I was proud of him for that. When David returned from his trip, I felt relief. Not because I didn't trust myself or Jake, but because life felt more balanced when the whole family was together. That weekend, I passed Jake's room and overheard him on a call. Yeah, I had a weird moment with my stepmom. Nothing happened, but it made me realize how important she is to me, just not in that way. I smiled and kept walking. Summer ended. Jake returned to college. We stayed in touch. He'd send texts asking for recipes, or just to check in. Occasionally, he'd thank me for always being honest with him. I never told David about the awkward moment. There was no need. Nothing happened. Sometimes life presents you with messy, human situations. What matters is how we choose to handle them, with respect, with maturity, and with love. And in the end, that's what Jake and I did. We moved past the awkwardness, respected the boundaries, and kept the bond we'd built intact. Because sometimes the most powerful thing that can happen next is nothing at all.